Well, thank you all very much for being here. My name is Corey Fry. I'm the exhibitions manager here at the Delaplaine Art Center. And I'm really excited about today's talk. We do 2 of these talks every month. The first Saturday of the month is usually reserved for one of our exhibiting artists or several of the artists that are a part of a group. And then the second talk, which will be, sorry, I'm looking for the date. It's actually next Friday, the 12th, if you're interested, is Daniel Fulco, who's the curator at the Washington County Museum of Art over in Hagerstown, if you've ever been there. They have a great collection of work over there. So Daniel will be here on site, same room, and that's at noon this coming Friday the 12th. So if you're interested, you can come out for that.
And what's the subject?
Daniel will just be talking about the museum's collection, his work as a curator, different exhibitions that he's curated there at the museum. So it'll be good. If you haven't had a chance, take some time to look around at the exhibitions that we have going on. You're sitting in the West Gallery, which is part of the Over 70s show. It continues over in the East Gallery, which you probably walked through as you came into this room. Off of the East Gallery, there's a separate, smaller gallery that is one of our solo artists, Dave Moreland. And then there's 2 gallery spaces on the second floor with solo exhibitions up there as well. So take some time to look around. There's really great artwork. We change out artwork sometimes monthly, sometimes shows are 2 months long as well, but usually something's changing each month. So the other thing I want to mention is take some time and grab one of our magazines at the front desk. Our fall magazine just came in this past week, so we've got fall classes coming up, other programming that we're doing throughout the fall, and there's lots of good stuff to pay attention to in there. I think that's all of the logistics that I have to go through. Let me know if you need anything while you're here visiting. But I'm really excited about the opportunity to hear from just 3 of our artists from the Over 70 show. There's, I think, like 120 different artists that are a part of this show this year. And the way that the show works is if you're over 70 years old, you have automatic inclusion of 1 piece in the show. So it's usually a really popular show. It's usually pretty eclectic as far as disciplines and mediums go, as well as subject matter and all that stuff. So it's usually a great show. But 3 of our artists that are going to be sharing today are Don Burdell, who has a piece, unfortunately it's like right behind us. It's the glove piece on the back wall, the sculptural piece with the wrens, right, that are building a nest in the glove. Linda Constant Robinson, whose piece is on the title wall in the East Gallery over here, and we'll have pictures of these up as well. And then Pat Greco, whose piece is right behind me here, this graphite and charcoal piece. And there'll be images of each of those pieces up as we go through the slides here. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome up Don Burdell. If you guys would give Don a hand. Anywhere, you're good. Great.
Thank you all for coming and enjoying this art show. It really shows such great diversity. We're still alive and kicking at 7 ends. That proves it. I'm going to run through a random selection almost of my work and talk a little bit about it. And it was hard choosing what to pick because I've been at this for 60 years now as a professional at this. So just from a little background, I grew up on the Eastern Shore at Crisfield, Maryland. And my exposure to art was not in school. They didn't even teach art in high school. But down the road, about half a mile through the woods, was the grand old masters of bird carving and painting, the Ward brothers. And so I started hanging out at their shop, and they were wonderful old men. who shared everything they knew. And so I got my sense of form and the ability to mix paints and all from just watching these guys. And these were, you'd call them poor. They barbershopped, and if no one was sitting in the barbershop, they'd sit in the chair and carve. So their barbershop was really great. It had the smell of kerosene, oil paints, Jergens hair oil, you know, all the things that go in, and mix it all up. I can still smell that today. It is such a wonderful smell. So from there I went to Pratt Institute Industrial Design School, which is half art and half industrial engineering design. And after that went into the Peace Corps and carried on work there in the arts designing furniture for rural furniture makers who were making chairs for $2 or $3. And we started doing some organic furniture, which was really great. But anyway, from the Peace Corps, my wife and I traveled around the world and lived extended periods in India, South Africa. And then I got back to the States and we set up shop in Pennsylvania. And then after 3 Mile Island, we moved to Maryland to escape those reactors. And that's where I've had my studio since 1980 in the surroundings of Mount Airy. Okay, let's go through this. I threw this in. This is a little Christmas ornament that I do. It's only about so big. And each year I do an ornament that has the theme of one of America's waterfowl. And there are 44 waterfowl in America, so each year I've been doing one. But looking at my age, I've decided to double up and do 2 a year to get through this. This is a drawing. I always carry a sketchbook with me and a pen so that if something strikes me, I can write it down. And this is something I learned at Pratt, is to carry a sketchbook and note down your experience of life. This was a picture of Allen Ginsberg drawn from life in India. This is a little sculpture called Artist Proof. It's a little wren on a brush. And the feet are metal and the bird is a wood carving that I cast in resin and then carved it to get this effect. So big. This piece was actually shown a year or two ago here. I guess it was a senior show. Barn Dwellers. The piece of wood is actually chestnut, which is a virtually extinct wood. And the old barn was 150 years old, so it's an old piece of wood, and I just had to do something with it. This is a series that I've been doing called Home Plate, and I take a license plate, and I was inspired by a barn where I found birds building a nest on a license plate. So it's about that big. And these are barn swallows and chicks. This is a genre I'm having fun with called corner art. It's for fitting in the corner of buildings. And in our bathroom, which is a small little room, these two things frame the mirror. And it looked like a great way to utilize spaces. I haven't run across it being explored much. So I find old interesting pieces of wood and put these birds on them. And that piece is maybe that tall. This is a favorite thing of mine. This is a cabinet door, and it's actually inside is where I keep all my paints. But on the outside, I took to writing little, I call them passing comments, C-O-M-E-T-S. Ideas that just pop into my mind. I also call them downloads. Oops, can I? I can't make the screen bigger because I wanted to. Is there any way to zoom in?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, this is a big piece, maybe from here to the floor, and it's a collection of years of little thoughts that I scribbled down, and I've later gleaned these together with others, going back through my old journals and sketchbooks, and produce a book on all of these called Passing Comments. And it's a fun read, and I treat it like vitamins. You read one a day, and kind of keeps me inspired. This is a little piece called Earth Tones. It's a pine branch with a wren on it. And this is Henry Overboard. Henry is a neighbor some miles down the road. And he used to keep a large collection of waterfowl on his farm, and I would go there and sketch. We became good friends. And in talking with him, he was telling me about his growing up on the Chesapeake Bay, and we shared that experience in common. And he was telling me about, he was dating this girl, and he wanted to make a good impression, so he took her out in his boat, and the boat sunk. And he had to jump overboard and walk this thing in. And I haven't done the back section yet. The stern is going to be with her sitting in it, looking very glum about this whole thing. And Henry said that's the last time he ever got to date her. But, so this piece is maybe that long. And it was sculpted in clay, and then I cast it in a permanent resin material. So I've always liked Henry Overboard. Another home plate collection, this time a Pennsylvania tag. And I've taken orders on these. People have given me plates off their old cars. And so I will immortalize the event with doing something like this. This is just a sketch out of my journals of the boat we took from San Francisco to Japan on our way to India. It was a freighter, and it was the last voyage this freighter was making. They were going to scrap it after this one trip, and the crew was of the same vintage. They were ready to be scrapped too. It was just bizarre. The captain wouldn't let us out of our room hardly because we had long hair. He didn't want us walking on the deck. He was right out of the past. This is a piece I call the cross koan. It's like we have a definite image of what the cross is, but what is this? You know, and so it's like something I've pondered about. What would be the meaning of this? And it's kind of a three-dimensional version. And I treat it like a koan, something to think about. And another area that I love is collage, mixing collages and oftentimes adding paint to it. And this is just a little sketch thrown in. It kind of sums up the situation. And these are drawings where I wanted to explore the minimum of brush and the minimum of pen, and see how simple I can get and yet convey an image and a feeling. This to me is like a great exercise. This is a carving. It's about so big, and I call her Mona Mallard because my objective here was, can I get the Mona Lisa in a duck? And so this is the result of that exploration. Drawing of my wife making a net. This was in India. I always like this drawing. Another exploring minimal brush and pen to see how simple you can get and yet convey an actual feeling of a person. And now this kind of stuff comes from the Ecuadorian first grade readers. I fell in love with them. I was buying them all over the place. And they have images in there that just really struck me. And this was a development of that kind of image. And I remember this one textbook I had for first graders doing numbers. And they'd have a one, big one on the page, and then something going on up here, a little village, and some down here, a little market, and people were walking to and from the market. Well, on number 5, on the right side of the thing was this cliff going straight up, and on the inside was a gorge going straight down. And at the bottom of the gorge was this crashed bus with 5 little dead children. And this was how they taught 5, you know, and I thought, those kids are going to remember 5. But there was such purity and honest, and it really bordered on high abstraction as far as I was concerned. So here's another example of teaching 2. And the relationship between that, to me, was really great. We ended up calling these things parallelograms, matching 2 things. This, back to the bird carving story, is a pintail carving, life size, and it's what I call a collector's grade slick. It's smooth, but the paintwork is intensely detailed. And I'm very fond of the pintail duck. He's such a beautiful thing. Another view of it. And the head is carved separately from the body and then attached, and that's done for structural reasons, to make it back on the ship again. You know, it strikes me how people can walk back and forth in front of something, but when the artist comes around, he stops and he looks at that and sees what's really going on. And that's what the artist experience is. That's what makes artists such a wonderful thing to be involved in. This is my shop. Actually, it's got another wing on the left side there. This was the storm of '84. Oh, we're back to the mirror. This is a carving called Little Rockers, and it's a pair of shrikes, baby shrikes, and the rocks and the are carved out of one piece of wood. In fact, the whole thing is one piece of wood. The birds are a part of the original block of wood. And I used to sell through trailside galleries out in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and also in Scottsdale. And for years, my work was sold through them. But the owner, who became a friend, sold it, and the new owners would no longer outright buy pieces for their gallery. They wanted everything on consignment, so at that point, I couldn't do it. This is a piece called Spring Chicks, and this is the springs of a cushion that I found in a back field, and the cushion part had all rotted away, and what was left were the strings, and I had to do something with it, so this is a baby blue jay. This is a bluebird. This is another one of those paintbrush pieces. And this is out of a sketchbook called Girl with Insight. This is my wife, pen and ink. This is a drawing of 2 yogis in India at Rishikesh who were speaking. And we stayed for a year at an ashram in the Himalayas, the Shivananda ashram. There were about 300 monks there, and this was a senior monk and a visiting monk. Another home plate collection, swallows again. And this was a friend of ours named Yvonne who would, she'd be in the meditation hall and she'd just go out in bliss, and I thought it was just such a great image. So unbeknownst to her, I sat there and painted her. And this is the most important piece I've ever done. And this is a memorial to the 6 million who perished in the Holocaust. And it's 20 feet long and 9 feet tall, and it's high relief. I went down to the Holocaust Museum in Washington, and the top floor is an archive. Tens of thousands of pictures. And they let me just gleam through and pick the ones that I wanted to put into this piece. So as I was sculpting it in clay, I would tack that picture up right beside the person I was working with, and that's how these figures came about. But there was one lady I was trying to do, and I moved the clay around, and it wasn't her, it wasn't the picture of this lady, and someone else was there. And I tried this 3 or 4 times, and then it dawned on me, this was my grandmother trying to get in this picture. So she's in there. If you take from the left side, go across the adults, and she's the third one looking over the head of that little girl with the white scarf. And the people at the community center really seemed to like the idea that this Gentile wanted to be a part of this Jewish event. And but that's the thing about this. When I was doing this, every individual I felt was communicating with me. They wanted to be done in a certain way, and it was transcendental what was going on between creating the image of someone who actually existed. And so that's why this piece is so important to me. And here's a side view. You can see the depth of the relief that's involved. And all these people on the front row are life-size.
Did you say where it was?
York, Pennsylvania, at the Jewish Community Center there. And as you come into the center, it's across the whole wall as you come in. I got a letter one time from an English colonel who walked in unbeknownst that was there, and he had to write me a letter because he was the liberating officer of one of the camps, and he wanted to tell me how important this was to him. So I think that's it. And if you have any questions, maybe we have a few minutes for a question. Then it's Linda's turn.
Thank you, Don. Everybody welcome Linda Constant Robinson. That's great.
I have some handouts that has my background. Rather than talk about me, I'd rather talk about my painting. So you can pass that around. Take one if you like. So this is the Inca Primavera. And one of the things that, in fact, when I was listening to Don just now, so many of the things that he talked about of how he notices and keeps a sketchbook and remembers so many things that other people just walk by. I think that is the way of the artist. And when I can remember, even as a child, that one of the things that I had such pleasure in was noticing things. And I'd go to church when I was probably around 5 or 6, and just bored being in church. It was just awful. But one day, what I discovered was there was a gentleman sitting in front of me, and I noticed his ears. And what was so interesting about his ears, which I'd never seen such a thing before, was that there was this wonderful curly hair coming out of his ear. And it made a little mitten on his earlobe, and it kind of held his ear. And after that, I mean, that was such a glorious experience for a 5-year-old. After that, I was really eager to go to church and hope that he would sit in front of me because I wanted to see his ears again. And that kind of enthusiasm for detail and for observation has been with me all my life, and I'm really glad that it has been because I've had a rich life. With this painting, the Inca Primavera, that came out of my inspiration of my trips to Peru and Bolivia and the Amazon, but mostly it was Peru and Bolivia that this painting came from. When I came back from my trip, I knew I wanted to paint something about the trip, but I couldn't really come up with an idea of how to put it together, what exactly I wanted. And so I oftentimes when I have like canvas block and you don't know what you're going to do, the thing that I've learned to do is to pause. Well, first I meditate in the morning all the time anyway, but after that, if I set my intentions that I'm going to, this day, I will give myself time to pause and notice everything today. And so I'm very much trying to live in the moment. And when I'm in my garden or if I'm out shopping or a restaurant, I pause, I'm consciously pausing and noticing. Other times I'm not even conscious that I'm doing that, and I can be staring at someone so intensely that they realize I'm looking at them, and it's kind of embarrassing because, you know, people know when you're looking at them like that. And so I have to be more discreet about it. Sometimes I wear my sunglasses and keep them on in the restaurant so they can't see that I'm looking at them. And I've done that over the years, and it's just kind of second nature. So when I'm in a culture that's so very different from our culture, it's actually easier because everything is noticeable. You just notice everything. You're not familiar with it. And as I'm trying to decide how to go about this painting, the thought of Botticelli's Primavera kept popping into my head. This is Botticelli's painting Primavera, which is springtime. Now this one was painted, I think, like 1540. And in this painting, it's absolutely, you see it in history books or in slides, but until you see it, the real thing, in the Uffizi Gallery in Florence, you're like drunk, it's so beautiful. And I kept thinking about this, and finally it came to me that, I know what I can do. I can do an Inca Primavera and try to encapsulate some of that thought about the gloriousness of springtime. And so in the Inca Primavera, I have incorporated the sun god, which is up on the right, and that image is a true image. I've seen it in museums in Peru, as well as, believe it or not, in a marketplace, there was graffiti on the wall of one of the buildings there that had pretty much that kind of image. So it's in their culture, it's not divorced from it, so it's a living thing. So the sun god is there, and I knew I wanted to do that, and then I knew I wanted to have Mama Pacha, who is the Mother Earth, in this painting. But what threw me was I didn't know how to really paint corn or the essence of corn. And so what I did was I got in my car and I drove around until I found a cornfield. And I parked the car and got out, and I went into the cornfield. And it was just amazing because at that time, the tassels from the corn were just coming out, and you could actually, it was blowing, the wind was blowing, and the stalks were stiff and hard, but the leaves were flowing, and the tassels from the top of the corn was flowing in the wind, and it was almost like little specks of gold just floating out into the cornfield. And so I came back to my studio, and it was very easy to start painting what I was thinking about and get this image. So that she's planting corn, and you can see some of the gold specks just floating around. So that was another part of the painting that I incorporated. And then the figure in the middle, which is, I think, the essence of mortal fertility, that image came to me, the memory of it was that I was in a marketplace in Peru, in Lima, and I noticed there was a figure sitting on the ground with a shawl and a hat, and had a baby, and I assumed it was a woman, and then as I got closer and I looked, it wasn't, it was a man. So I figured that, you know, she was probably taking a coffee break or something, and he had to babysit. And so he had this baby, and he was selling flowers, and that just stuck in my mind. And when I came home, I was going to do it all by itself, but then she ended up becoming part of this painting. And then I wanted to incorporate the hummingbirds. There were just hundreds and hundreds of all kinds of hummingbirds. And one of the hummingbirds is a giant hummingbird. I didn't get to see it. I never did, sorry about that. So I decided to just invent him. And the reason I put the hummingbirds is because in Inca culture, the hummingbird represents their ancestors, who were the kings and the queens of their ancestry. And they come back as hummingbirds back to this land. And so I included those hummingbirds, and I put a dove in right here. This is a dove. I just threw him in because I was thinking about the Virgin Mary over there, that a dove came to her and told her about this miraculous birth that was coming. So that was the inspiration, the Botticelli, but not to copy Botticelli, but just to have a way to kind of organize my thoughts and to go on from there and paint this painting. And what else about it? Oh, the flowers, these vines that are in it, these are wildflowers. They're this vine of red flowers that grow just all over. They're used in ceremonies, like when a couple gets married, they dip the vine in water and then bless them, the couple. And so I thought by including these, it's got a double message, but it also has a composition message, so it kind of brings the whole thing together. And that particular painting took me 2 years to get that to the completion, that I didn't want to do anything else to it. You can have a painting, I'm sure all of you who are artists know this, if you put your painting that you finished, you say it's finished, and you put it up where you can see it, and every day you pass, and every day you look at it, and one day you say, oh God, I didn't do that right, and I gotta do something to that painting. I never feel that way about this painting. I feel like I completed it, I followed the muse wherever it led me, and had a wonderful experience doing it, and I've enjoyed showing it here. I hope you enjoyed seeing it. Thank you. So I I don't know if you have any questions?
All kinds of questions.
You have questions?
I love the diagonal between the dove and the flowers. I take to be hallucinogens that are used, that particular color and that particular shape. I recognize.
Well, I really wasn't on anything when I painted that. It was just pure normal.
It's T.S. Eliot who says, if there's any definition of inspiration, it means you didn't know everything you were doing.
Well, you know, when I paint, it is like it is like a drug because I try to divorce myself from reality when I'm painting and to get in the flow. And if I can get in that place where I'm not thinking, but I'm doing, and it's coming from a reservoir of observation through my whole life. I mean, I'm 80 years now, you know, but from 5 years old when I looked at the mittens on the ears to today, it's a whole library of information that feeds this. And the journey is wonderful. Art is a wonderful thing.
What I do is poetry, and it was Wittgenstein said actually about his philosophy that the object was to keep the pen moving faster than you could think.
That's it.
The pen was ahead of you.
That's exactly right. Once you start, for me, once I start to think about it, I have lost it. I have to move away from it because if I'm thinking too hard, it's too stiff, it's not right, it doesn't have the rhythm, it doesn't have the essence, it doesn't have the honesty. And visual art's a lot like poetry.
No, but do you find yourself changing things? Because I think one of the things that I noticed that is obvious in poetry when we talk about that context is you throw something down quickly and it's hot, it's loaded with emotion. When you decide to revise, then there's a little bit of grammar that keeps in, there's a little bit of thought that keeps in. And you get done and you look at it and you say, well, yeah, that's cool, but the emotion's gone, the feeling's gone. So you wind up either just trying to do it as quickly as you can or trying to figure out a way to revise without losing that heat.
Well, I think that's the trick, is if you try to revise it, not to do it at the expense of the energy that was there before. That's the trick, yeah. Anybody else?
Thank you, Linda. Next up is Pat Greco. Give her a round of applause. You can just use that arrow to go.
Thank you all so much for coming. Actually, I'm shocked to be here, to be frank. I certainly don't have the training that Linda has and Don. I've not been a lifelong artist, so I'm kind of new to the whole art world. Just something I decided to do after I retired. I was a government bureaucrat, didn't do anything with art my whole life. Maybe a few sketches here and there, but nothing really that I would call art at all. But I was retiring and I decided, okay, I should have something to do. I need something that takes some time. So I took some art courses. I started with oil painting and did a few. It wasn't really my thing. I really didn't enjoy it that much. I really kind of wanted to know more about the technical side of painting, how to mix paints, how to learn the tools, and that's not what they were teaching me. So I kind of gravitated. I did come here to the Delaplaine, actually, for some drawing lessons, and I have to say they were quite helpful. I really enjoyed it here. But I gravitated to pencil, which seemed to me, when I decided to do something that I really liked with me, I really, really enjoyed it. It was something that I could do, and kind of continued with it. Definitely not, the caliber of Linda and Don, but it's something that I enjoy and I try doing. This is a drawing of, his name is Chester Medicine Crow, and he's the son of the Indian chief, the Crow Indian chief from Montana, Medicine Crow. He had 4 sons. This is one of his sons. That's his father's headdress, and the flag in the background is something that was given to him by the, I guess, the U.S. Army on the reservation. But the detail on that one, I swore I would never do another feather as long as I lived. It took a while. But I can do it. This one is a drawing of a friend's little girl and their dog. And when I saw it, I just loved the whole emotion that I saw in this drawing, in this this photo. And I do work with photos, obviously. And that's kind of something that is, if there is a theme to what I do, that's what it is. I really look for emotion, people expressing feelings, and I do almost all portraits. I don't do linear things because that's not how my brain works. I did try a scene from Venice with the towers of Venice, and I got it all done, and it sort of like went off that way. that was not going to work. So I kind of stick with people. I think I have better luck with people. The dog was a little bit difficult to do. I don't know if you can tell, it's supposed to be a leather pouch, but it was a little difficult to get the dog right. But it was fun doing. This one, again, with emotion, clearly she just, was loving that horse, and they have their bond. There's something between them that I hope that I captured. This is my latest one. This is something that my son, I'm sorry, this is not the one. This is the photograph that I use for inspiration. I'm sorry, this is not my drawing. But mine is similar, but not that one. This one is mine. This is the one I call Caleb. And he's sort of a mountain man. The inspiration for this was from a painting by the artist James Obama, who does a lot of work for the American West. And this was from a painting. I thought I would do it in pencil to see how it came out. Came out pretty well, I think. The beard, again, if I've done anything with pencil and beards, it's kind of a challenge. So we enjoy it. Again, emotion, clearly a weathered person. He's been around a long time. He's aged, but he still has a story. He has a story, and perhaps some that you can see in his eyes. This is a friend from Norway. His name is Sondre, and he's a young man. He is a musician, and I think he's transgender, and he's on his phone, which you can tell. And he was thrilled that I did this for him. He's a musician. He's just come out with his first album. He's touring Europe, and he is probably about, I don't know, let's see, 22 or 23. But I just liked, when I saw the photo, I just really liked the shadow, the light reflection from his phone onto his face. And I think he's in his bedroom. But it was just like, in a moment in time, he just looked, he's just looking away, and who's there, who's doing this, and he just was going back to whatever he was doing before. But I just was kind of intrigued by the light and who he is and what he's trying to do in his life. This is a photograph of from a friend. I use this inspiration. there was a festival in Little Italy in Baltimore, and they hire people to come and help with, the heavy lifting and doing things. Well, this was a man that they had hired, probably homeless or down on his luck, and he was tired, and he just kind of leaned back against the wall to take a little bit of a rest. And I just loved that, that look on his face. Tired in so many ways, just physically tired, mentally tired, and he just needed a rest. But where he was going, what he was going to do after, what was his life before, kind of all of those things appealed to me. It's like, what does he do? Where does he go from here, basically? Yeah, we all know Marilyn. This was one I did a few years ago, 2013. I didn't often see that image. It's not an image you see of her very often, but she was an intriguing lady and still is. Will always be iconic to all of us. And she's got that. Somebody asked me if that was a liquor bottle. No, it's Chanel No. 5. That's what she always used. So all of these are done in almost graphite pencil, some charcoal pencils, some carbon pencils to get the shading, the dark, the darks and lights. And I've progressed along over the years. I've learned, probably tried every pencil that's made. Now I have some that I'm doing. They're from Japan. They're Japanese, and they're very good. I love them. So that's my newest find. But I have plenty of supplies. I'm sure you all do. If you do any art, you've got tons of stuff. So, is there any questions, anything that, yes?
Do you take some of the photographs yourself?
I do. Some, like
like the boy that you did, which is a very beautiful drawing.
which one?
The transgender boy?
Yes. There are a couple other ones that I've done that I've taken photos myself. And I see things like you were saying, and I think you were saying that you see something and you just want to, like, you stare at somebody and you're just like, oh my God, I could draw that face. That face is great. That happens a lot. That I want to stop and get pictures and work with it, and I do. But I like older faces, to be honest. People who have some age, I do, like us. And because their life is there, it shows, in their faces, what they've been through, where they're going, what they're feeling, what they have felt, what the things that they've been through in life, their experiences. And I really like, lines. I like aging. I like some of the, the things that really show the life that they've lived. So I do look for that.
Does that go back with you to before the art? Are you a person who has noticed faces?
Probably, yeah, probably. But the whole drawing is like, I'm still shocked that I'm actually here with these two very talented people. It's like me, really. But it's fun. It's I'm enjoying this part of my life, and this, whatever gift I was given, I really appreciate it. And I just want to say to all of you that it's probably all possible for all of you too. That when you retire, you take the time. Things sometimes just bubble up to the surface that you didn't know you had, but all of a sudden it's there. So I'm grateful for it, thank God, and appreciate it. But, yes?
How much time do you take to make a picture like this, for example?
This one was a long time. It was probably, I would say, a drawing every day, about 4 or 5 months to do that. And sometimes I don't draw every day. Or I'll go back and I'll look at it and go, oh, what did I do that for? So I change things. I see things that I didn't see before. So you do have to, I'm sure you all know, you look at it, you have to walk away, come back, you see things in a different light. You see things that you didn't see before. And so that requires some changing, and that's kind of one of the nice things that working in pencil, you can just erase that and start over, you know. So, but it takes, you know, the more detail, the longer it takes, clearly. It does. So any other questions? Thank you all very much.
Thank you all so much for being here. Take some time to wander around the galleries and check out the artwork. I want to mention too, if you're over 65 years old, we have something called the M&T Scholarship here. M&T Bank provides us with a certain amount of money towards scholarships for classes. So if you're interested in taking any classes and you're over 65, you can look into the upcoming fall classes and give us a call, shoot us an email, talk to the front desk, and we'll send the information your way if that's something you're interested in. But thank you all very much for being here. Thank you to our speakers today very much for sharing, and have a good rest of your Saturday.